Morning. Kevin and I were away with our family last Sunday, and so we were not here. And often it can be helpful to listen to the previous person's sermon when you're going to preach the next week. But we didn't do that. We created our sermon, and then we're like, hey, we ought to listen to EJ's sermon last Sunday. And so as we listened to EJ's sermon, we found ourselves smirking at each other at the number of times that EJ said something that was referring or exactly what we had planned to say. Isn't that fun? It's really cool to see how the Spirit is at work. So I want to encourage you today to keep an ear to be listening to the things that you heard last Sunday that connect or show up again this Sunday. And if you weren't here last Sunday, I encourage you to take some time to listen to EJ's sermon from last Sunday. I know it will be a blessing.
Have you ever received a gift that you didn't think you needed, and then later realized that you absolutely needed it? No? And then after that, you realize that everyone else got the same gift that you got? Never. Okay. Yeah, me neither. Today, we are looking at the story of the visitation of the Magi. This Sunday is referred to as Epiphany Sunday, or the manifestation of Jesus to the Gentiles. Jesus was the gift for the Jews, but he was given to everyone. Not very popular with the Jews.
Gifts can be complicated. Having just come from Christmas, we know this well. Jesus was a gift for the Jews, but that was complicated as what they expected and what they received were not the same. Mary's gift of Jesus was full of complications. She's young, engaged, and pregnant, and there were huge expectations for her son.
Before we jump into the text, let's do a little bit of pre-work. There are two main groups in this narrative. We have the Jews, the descendants of Abraham and Sarah, who are also known as Israelites or Hebrews. And then we have the Gentiles, and that would be everyone else. As Annie already responded or said to earlier, we think that this visitation by the Magi was probably 2 years after Jesus' birth. For the Jews, the Messiah was a long-awaited promise. Jesus was to be the anointed one, the one that would usher in peace and prosperity. This was interpreted by many Jews as Jewish rule or sovereignty, a king, the likes of David. Today, we're going to look at the story as told from the perspective of Matthew. What is Matthew wanting us to hear in this story? First, King Herod. Herod was raised as a Jew. His father was an Edomite, whose ancestors were forcibly converted into Judaism. That might make you wonder the kind of Jew that Herod was. Herod was appointed by the Romans to rule over Israel as king of the Jews. This was a serious problem when Jesus was referred to as the king of the Jews by the Magi when they're seeking him out. I'm not sure if you noticed this. I hadn't seen it. In verse 3, there's a little phrase at the end that is curious to me. Let me read it to you. When Herod heard this, meaning the announcement of Jesus, he was disturbed. All of Jerusalem with him. Why would all of Jerusalem be disturbed at the announcement of Jesus? Many commentators say, well, because Herod was king, and therefore everyone around him, all of Israel, all of Jerusalem, should also be concerned. Is that what Matthew meant? Matthew could be echoing the Jewish line of thinking, calling the readers to remember the birth of Moses. Pharaoh was alarmed by the growth of the Hebrews and attempted to execute all of the Hebrew boys. In our story, Herod is disturbed by the kingship that could be threatening his power. And later in this chapter, he puts out an order to kill all the boys in Bethlehem who were 2 years and younger. Ironic. Matthew is alluding to the problem we have with the change in power. The Jewish leaders struggled with Jesus as king or Messiah as well. Remember, what they wanted, what they were expecting is not what they got. And later, they would execute him. Now let's look at the other character. The other character in the group are the Magi, the kings. These were Gentiles from the east. They were also men of power. But they came looking for the king of the Jews with very different intentions. When they came, they had an interaction with Herod. He asked them to go and scout out Jesus. Right? I loved Annie's little pause there. Like, yeah, I want to worship him. Whatever. After visiting Jesus, they defied Herod's order and headed home instead of reporting, which resulted in Herod's true character being revealed. They also came bearing gifts, very different than Herod. They brought gold, frankincense, myrrh.
Okay, wait. Before you go any further, can we talk about these gifts? Like, if Mary was going to Target and putting together a gift list of what she was hoping, I don't know that gold, myrrh, and frankincense were going to make the cut. What about, like, diapers or, like, clothes for this growing boy? Or if I had a good friend visiting me, I would want, like, a hot casserole and some fresh bread and a freshly baked apple pie. But maybe I'm just thinking too practically about, like, what I would want or what I think that Mary would want. And I guess the problem is when we think really practically about these gifts, we miss the message. We miss the deeper meaning, the unexpected meaning. These gifts were not randomly chosen. They each had significant meaning, and they were foreshadowing of who Jesus would be. You have to remember, the people during that time did not understand who Jesus was. He came to show us how to live a radical life of a servant. Not at all what one might expect from a king. Even with all the biblical texts and commentaries that we have today, we still don't see it all clearly. The mystery of Jesus continues. So, what was the meaning of the gifts that the Magi brought in honor of the king?
Yeah, they were symbolic. Given that Matthew knew his readers and that they would understand it, it made sense when they read it. I'm not sure it does make as much sense for us. Gold, not a very practical gift for a baby. Gold represented Jesus' kingship. Gold was a gift that you gave to a king. Frankincense. Frankincense represented what was the deity. In the Old Testament, frankincense was burned offering. By bringing this gift, the Magi affirmed that Jesus was both fully man and fully God. Myrrh. Myrrh represented the death of Jesus. Commonly used to embalm bodies, the gift of myrrh foreshadowed Jesus' death. Certainly, the readers of this text would know that it was Nicodemus that brought myrrh to Jesus' birth. So, let's get this straight. Herod, who was a Jew, was threatened by Jesus and wanted to keep his power and eliminate the threat. The Magi, who were Gentiles, not the chosen people, came to herald Jesus' birth, bring honor, and worship Jesus.
I can see why Matthew's readers could be confused. They believed the Messiah's arrival would be grand and powerful, and so this is not what they expected. I find myself drawn to those storylines with the expected outcomes, like the one-hour TV dramas where the incident occurs and the police investigate and the criminals are brought to justice. Or the story of the small town girl who returns home and falls in love with her high school sweetheart who is taking over the family farm, and they fall in love and have a lovely outdoor garden wedding and live happily ever after.
Oh, like a Hallmark movie.
Of course. I admit that I like these things tied up with a nice, neat bow at the end when the good people win. And one reason I, and maybe you, find yourself drawn to this is because it is far from our real life reality. Our lives are complicated and messy. Our world is complicated and messy. And the world that Jesus was born into was complicated and messy as well. We often like to celebrate the birth of Jesus in a very condensed way, where all the events take place in a 1-hour church service, kind of like the TV show I was referring to. Mary is visited by the angel Gabriel with the invitation to be the birth mother of Jesus, and after contemplation, she agrees to the adventure. She visits her cousin Elizabeth, who's pregnant with cousin John. Mary writes and sings the Magnificat. And then her and Joseph journey to Bethlehem for the census, struggling to find lodging. She delivers baby Jesus in the chaos of a stable with all the smells and sounds to fit in. And then suddenly the night sky lights up with the angel choir celebrating. And shepherds visit and give their respect, and magi bring gifts of gold, frankincense, and myrrh. Whew. That is exhausting to fit into a 1-hour church service, and that assumes that the children find their appropriate costume that they're wearing and find the space they're supposed to walk to, and that no one starts to cry. But in reality, the story that we try to shove into 1 hour is a much longer story with many more twists and turns and emotions and surprises. This is not a nicely wrapped up with a bow story. The expectation of Jesus was foretold, and yet still very surprising. None of the story is how one would expect the King of the Jews to enter the world. The arrival of Jesus was an expected gift in an unexpected package.
Let's unpack a bit more the circumstances surrounding the unexpected gift of Jesus.
Let's start with Mary, the mother of Jesus. Now, Mary, we find out, is in the midst of planning her future with her soon-to-be husband, Joseph, and all the hopes and dreams that their life together might bring. She's only thought to be about 15 or 16 years old at this time, and the gifts that she is looking for might be more like picking out the kind of dishes they're going to have or the color of their bedding. Maybe she was shopping for those things and making her list. Before her conversation with the angel Gabriel, there's really not a reason to think she was dreaming about a gift that would change the world. That's not what she was thinking. The gift of being the mother of Jesus was certainly an unexpected gift for Mary, and one that she could not fully comprehend when she said yes.
Jesus was clearly not the gift that the Jews were expecting either. First, the Messiah was for the Jews. Yet Matthew feels it important to remind us that the Gentile Magi who honored him with prophetic gifts. It makes me think that Matthew wants to remind his readers that Jesus was for the Jews and the Gentiles from the very beginning. Matthew also reminds his readers not to make the same mistake that Pharaoh made. We fear what we do not understand and cannot control. We want to maintain power. This is a warning that the Jews did not heed. If you were looking for a place of which Jesus would come from, Nazareth would surely not be it, for most Jews had a low regard for the people of Nazareth. Again, further disrupting what the Messiah should be. As Jesus' life unfolds, he continues to remind his readers that Jesus will not be the ruling king that they expect. He will wash people's feet. That's the job of a servant. He will love the Jewish enemies, the tax collectors, the Roman government. He will even choose peace when wrongfully accused. He will respond with kindness and healing, even when one of his followers cuts off the ear of a soldier. He will forgive those that betray him, Judas, Peter, the disciples, and others. He will go so far as to die a common criminal. What king, what anointed one, what Messiah dies as a common criminal? Jesus was not, I've got to read my last line there. She's very helpful. Jesus was not what the Jews expected.
Sometimes we may put a gift on our wish list that we already have the perfect spot all figured out. Maybe it'll fit right on our mantle, or it will help complete a grouping of things that we have, a collection. But Jesus comes and wants to show us how to live, and it is anything but how to fit in nicely to a predetermined collection. Jesus comes as a gift that calls us to remove ourselves from the center, to serve others, to put others first, to challenge the status quo, to move against the systems of power. He was a disruptive gift, a challenging gift, an unexpected gift. The challenge to welcome Jesus in the fullness of who he is continues to be a challenge for us today. What kind of king we think we want is challenged by the invitation of Jesus to an upside-down kingdom, a kingdom that is anything but traditional. The invitation to the gift of love, acceptance, rebirth, and healing is a gift where there is plenty for all, and all are invited. This is not a gift that you wait in line for Santa to see if you were good enough to receive, or a gift that when you're going online to buy something tells you there's only 2 left and you might not get it. No, this gift of life and love that is a come-as-you-are gift for all, this is the Jesus way, an upside-down kingdom way, where the hurting and disappointed, the injured and fragmented are welcomed and embraced, where new life is found, a place where all are welcome to come as the imperfect, scarred, authentic gifts that we are.
This leads us to an invitation to embrace the gift that we are for people and community. By embracing all of who we are, we share our unexpected gift with others.
As young children, we often have thoughts of who we want to be when we grow up. We try on different identities with child play. This is a time when life is simpler, when all ideas seem possible. We dream about what we want to be when we grow up. I remember playing those silly games, even the ones where you figure out who you're going to marry and how many cars you have and how many kids you're going to have, as if life could be controlled or figured out by the roll of a dice. But who we are today is shaped by life's journey, the things we have pursued and worked towards, and the unexpected and really hard things. Unresolved conflict, relationship breaks, medical diagnoses, careers that were not what we hoped, unfulfilled dreams and expectations. We each can write our own lists. When the brokenness of the world infiltrates our dreams of the ideal, we struggle to know what to do. Sometimes we cover up the reality of our pain or put on a happy face to mask our scars. Sometimes we are afraid that our authentic selves are going to be too much.
Is it possible to embrace who we are amidst these realities and challenges? What might that look like? The balance of naming what is hard and what we did not hope for and working through them is not an easy journey.
We were 20 and 22 when we got married. We look about 15 in our photos. You can see those if you come to our house. We were young and in love, and we certainly did not have any clarity about the gift that we would be to each other. Kevin tends to be a realist and says things as he sees them, and he doesn't say it is good when it is not.
There are times when what has happened is not good. That's not to say that they can't be redeemed. Ideally, we learn from it, and it shapes us, but it doesn't negate the pain or trauma that those situations create. Hope and optimism are Rhonda's general outlooks. She engages with people and sees the best in them.
I tend to see infinite hopeful possibilities and want to wrap things up in a bow of positivity. As you can imagine, this has not always been an easy partnership. We have spent time trying to overbalance each other in response to each other's perspectives. We've spent 35 years, as of December, of marriage struggling to welcome the gift that we each bring. And I will say we are now working intentionally more than ever to embrace the gift that the other brings us. This is our real life struggle of embracing the unexpected gift that we each bring, not only to our marriage, but also to our community. All of us have stories of struggles and challenges that impact who we are, and some of these are easier to embrace than others.
Jesus is the unexpected gift to the Jews and to the Gentiles, and as a result, to the world. So what about us as receivers of this gift? Do we have a response to this gift? Are we a part of this unexpected gift? We think so.
Have you worked at embracing the hard things and the joyful things and bringing all of that into community and offering it as a gift? What does that look like? Here at CUCC, we start each service by welcoming each of us to come as we are, wherever we are on life's journey. That includes bringing the complex gift of me, and you, and you. Embracing who we are and sharing the gift we are, the unexpected gift of ourselves, is part of what it means to reflect the gift of Jesus.
The unexpected gift of the Magi, a very different king, are a part of the mystery and gift of Jesus. May we embrace the unexpected gift of Jesus, ourselves, and each other. Amen.